Okay, here's the number. We're gonna start with 115. 115. Number 87. 87. Till my trophies at last I lay down, I will bring to the almighty cross and exchange it someday for a crown. Oh, that old rugged cross is satisfied the world as a wondrous attraction for me. For the deep heaven and His glory above, to bear to dark Calvary. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. And the old rugged cross, sacred blood so divine, a wondrous beauty I see. For was on that old cross, Jesus suffered and died to pardon and sanctify me. So I cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. To the old rugged cross I will ever be true, its shame and reproach gladly bear. Then I promise someday to my home far away, where His glory forever will share. So cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. Number 390. I'm sorry. Okay, 1, 2, and 5 verses 1, 2, and 5. As you trust in the pain, not a shadow can rise, not a cloud in the skies, but His sun quickly tries in the rain. Not a doubt or a fear, not a sign or a tear, can abide what we trust in the stand away, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus, but to trust in the way. Stand in fellowship, sing, we will sit at His feet, for we'll walk by His side in the way. What He says we will do, where He sends we will go. Never fear, only trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy with Jesus, but to trust and obey. Anybody have one? Tucking. Did you hear 5? What did you hear? 206. 206. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. My once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. God's grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace that leads me through. How precious is that grace appeared the hour I first believed. Through many dangerous circumstances, I have already known. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me on. When we can plenty thousand years, bright shining as the sun, we know that saves to save God's grace, and when we first begun. Praise God, 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 praise praise God, praise God, praise God, praise God, praise God, praise God, is a amazing grace. 309. 309. When you are discouraged, thinking all is lost, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God has done. Are you ever burdened with a load of care? Does the cross seem heavy you are all to bear? Count your many blessings, every time will fly, and you will be singing as the days go by. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God has done. Verse 4. So in the conflict, whether great or small, do not be discouraged, God is over all. Count your many blessings, angels will attend. Help and comfort give you to your journeys in. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God has done. You don't have a coach, honey? Don't tell me you're cold.
Well, thank you guys. Go ahead, you want to sing? Are you ready to sing? I do thank you guys for the letter tonight. When you really get that first push of cold, it feels like it's twice as cold as it really is, and it's damp out and nasty out. It feels like it's about zero. We'll be saying when it turns 37 in February, we're going to say, man, it's nice out. But I think that was what it basically was when I come in, it's 37. but it's supposed to get colder tonight, so make sure you get in and get a warm blanket, huh? And, all right, are you ready, George? You are. Get set, go! All right. Let's stand up. Chapter 13 of Acts, we started from 26th verse. It says, "Oh, children of Abraham, you God and Gentiles, it is to us that this message of salvation has been sent. The people of Jerusalem and the rulers did not recognize Jesus, yet in condemning him, they fulfilled the words of the prophets that are read every Sabbath. Though they found no proper ground for death sentence, they asked Pilate to have him executed. When they had carried out all that was written about him, they took him down from the cross and laid him in a tomb. But God raised him from the dead, and for many days he was seen by those who had traveled with him from Galilee to Jerusalem. They are all now his witnesses to our people. We tell you the good news, what God promised our ancestors is fulfilled for us, their children, by raising up Jesus, and is written in the second Psalm. You are my son, today I have become your father. God raised him from the dead so that he would never be subject to decay, as God has said. I will give you the holy and sure blessing promised to David. So he's also stated elsewhere, you will not let your Holy One see decay. Now when David had served God's purpose in his own generation, he fell asleep, he was buried with his ancestors, and his body decayed. But the one whom God raised from the dead did not see decay. Therefore, my friends, I will want you to know that through Jesus, the forgiveness of sins is proclaimed. Through him, everyone who believes is set free from every sin, a justification you were not able to obtain under the law of Moses. Take care that what the prophets have said does not happen to you. Father God, I praise you for this word. I thank you for the time. I thank you for every individual, as always. They just long to know you deeper. And it just is encouraging as your under shepherds to just get to be a part of the growth process, not only in my life, but in those around me. And so I praise you that you bless me with your ability to stand before your people to help share your word. But I pray everyone come out tonight with something to bring to the table, Lord God. We look for our giftings to flourish. We look for your word that prosper and go forth to accomplish a mighty work in this place tonight. So do just that for each and every one of us, and do what you see fit in our hearts, minds, lives, and bodies. In Jesus' precious name, amen. You see it. I'm going to drop my mic just a little bit. I'm a little high. So me anyway. That better? Not quite an echo up here for me. Amen. We left off here in verse, we got to verse 27 last week. We're in the midst of it. We're in the midst of Paul's address here, and he's trying to preach the gospel, is he not? He's trying to preach the good news. And he's talking here and trying to show the Jews and those that have gathered in the synagogue the story of Jesus, the good news to what Jesus done, what Jesus paid for. And we left off with what God had promised them in old, what God had promised their ancestors. He was faithful and just to bring to pass. We ended there last week talking about the promises of just that. What he promised, he said he was going to accomplish, and he did accomplish to Jesus. That promise that he spoke long time before, as it come to pass to Jesus. And he reaches, we're going to pick up at verse 28. It says, and he's talking about, though they found no proper ground for death sentence, they asked Pilate to have him executed. What was I'm asking for a lot of help here tonight? What was the grounds of the law for a death sentence? According to the law, there are quite a few grounds in Levitical law, Deuteronomic law, that there are grounds for a death sentence. Adultery is one. What? Acts 13. Acts chapter 13. 28. Now we're on the 28th verse. Adultery was one. Yeah. Taught the next adultery. Remember the adulterous woman? She was cast at the feet of Jesus. And he says, whoever has no sin amongst you, cast the first stone. What else what's another one?
In this case, that says blasphemy.
Blasphemy. Blasphemy was a ground for Death penalty, there, thank you. Yeah, what else? Blasphemy, adultery, murder. What else? I think I looked up earlier, there was like 20. And I can't name them all, I didn't write all that. I did give the ones that they tried to get accused of Jesus. Blasphemy, of course, was the first one. That's Leviticus 16 tells us blasphemy was a death sentence. And we know that was what they were, the trial before the Sanhedrin, that's what they brought it for. The charges against him was not blasphemy. They said, and they said that he blasphemed God, he was speaking against God, he was calling himself the Son of God, who was God. And so they were accusing him of blasphemy. He was accused of being a false prophet. Was he not? You can find that in Luke 44, 24 through 28. He says that a prophet, he said, look at that real quick. Go to Luke 4. Some people don't see this, but Luke 4. Luke chapter 4. And he's starting at the 24th verse. And he's already talked, this is where he stood up and he read from the scroll of Isaiah, and he sat down, but then he says this, verse 24, he says, truly I tell you, he continued, no prophet is except in his hometown. I assure you that there were many widows in Israel in Elijah's time. And he goes on down through here, and he says in verse 28, so he's talking about being a prophet here, and he says, all the people in the synagogue were furious when they heard this. They got up and drove him out of the town and took him to throw him to the brow of the hill on which the town was built in order to throw him off the cliff. They're accusing him of being a false prophet. He proclaimed himself as a prophet, and they're saying that they're taking him to, they're claiming he's a false prophet. Okay? And so, false prophet was Deuteronomy 6, is where the law speaks against it. What about Sabbath breaking? Was he accused of breaking the Sabbath? Yeah, he was accused of breaking the Sabbath. If you broke the Sabbath, it was grounds. You can find that in Exodus 14, Numbers 32 to 36, and it talks about it's not just a one-time Sabbath thing, but it's intentionally as a Jew breaking the Sabbath. And then witchcraft was grounds for, yeah, thank you. A lot of work came through my mind. Accused of witchcraft, when he cast out the demon, he was working for Beelzebub. Yeah. So see, these are things Jesus was accused of, and they never found no grounds, did they? These are four things that they looked for, and they didn't find no grounds. And what amazed me, another one, think about Mary, adultery, we already brought that up. Mary was found to be with child, betrothal to a guy, which is, if she's betrothal, she's considered married in that moment. And here she is, pretty much being accused of adultery. And what was Joseph willing to do? He was willing to put her away privately so she wouldn't face that. But what's amazing is every bit of this is attack the enemy, is it not? To try to kill him and use his very own law against him, the law of God, to use it against him. It's amazing how the enemy would try to twist the word and twist the law and the teaching of God to try to steal, kill, and destroy. Use it to do the very thing to take out God's chosen. And so that's what the enemy wanted to do. And what I found very interesting about this, when we think about it, go to Mark 14. Mark 14. Once you look at this. Starting at the 55th verse. It says, the chief priest and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death, but they did not find any. Many testified falsely against him, but their statements did not agree. Why is this important? Why is this important? What did it take to put somebody to death? What did it take, Joe? What did it take for somebody to put to death? It took 2 or more witnesses, right? Agreeing that such and such done what they're being accused of. When they stand before the court, before the judges, they're 2 or more have to agree. Well, they can't agree. Now, there's another case for the death penalty. There's another case for the death penalty, and it's that when false witnesses stand up in a trial for a death penalty, when they stand up and they don't agree, they have the same fate as the one being accused. So the accuser has the same fate as the one being accused, and that's in Deuteronomy 19, and verses 18 through 19. You can read that. What's amazing is, here it is, the enemy trying to put, he's on trial. Jesus has been on trial from day one, and trying to accuse him so he can take him out. But these false witnesses, we don't hear nothing about them condemning them when they're standing before the Sanhedrin. They can't even agree. They're committing perjury in our language, and it's supposed to be a death penalty because that's what they're trying to bring out on Jesus. It says right here, they're looking to put him to death. And so that should be their punishment, but we don't hear no punishment on them, do we? We don't hear no punishment. I love that, how when the accuser of the brethren stands before the brethren, he ain't gonna face his own music, is he? He's the one standing before Jesus. He's trying to condemn Jesus, but he ain't the one. He ain't gonna. Oh well, I brought all these fake people up, all liars, and all those, and they can't even agree on it, and they're not even facing it. Why? Because they're just puppets on a string. They're just puppets on a string, and I just found that just really ironic in that moment. You know, it's amazing how the tables are turned, but they'll just sweep that under the rug. That's the type of culture we live in today, is it not? It's going on right now. You know, they can point the finger and look for the minuscule things and try to pick everybody else apart they don't want. But over here, they can be just flat out doing what we know is against the law. This is right before the judge. They're doing what's wrong, and it's just, oh, well, that's that. That's okay. That's that. But it's our culture today. It's the time we live in on a daily basis. The enemy has such a foothold in the world around us where they can stand and point fingers, and they're the one that is standing in the wrong and standing condemned, but yet everybody else is wrong, and they pick them apart. They pick them apart. But we see that here, and it says, it says it goes in verse 28, it said, though they found no proper ground for a death sentence, they asked Pilate to have him executed. Why was this possible? What made this possible here? Where did they play on? What was yeah, right. Rome was so much, they were so after Pilate especially. Pilate's stepped on a thin ice. I mean, everything he done was being, because there were so many uprisings in Jerusalem at the time, and he's supposed to be the guy, and he's being washed, and you got all these zealots running around and causing commotion and doing things. And so he's skating on thin ice. If he don't get things in order, and now they're going in there playing off that. He's trying to cause an uprising. You see the following he's got. He's going to overthrow the government. He said he's going to throw down Rome and take it over. You know, just paraphrasing, but they're playing off the emotional side of Pilate and doing, and he's looking at, and even Pilate said, well, I find no fault in the guy. But worried of what? What happened? What was he worried of? An uprising. He said, well, nonetheless, he said, I'm going to wash my hands of this because, you know, he tried to push it back and say, you do it. If he broke your law, he ain't broke none of ours. He ain't done nothing wrong. He couldn't even find fault. But he was scared. He was scared. And that's amazing to me because isn't that what the enemy tries to do to give us in? Scare us. Scare us in to doing his dirty work. To end up doing, scare us into doing what's wrong.
I think he was afraid that Rome would have something to say about it because of the mob of the Jews there. They didn't want to have battle going on, like craziness, you know. And so he was fearful for Rome's sake.
Yeah, because Rome would come in there and they'd throw him out. You know, when Caesar and them jump in and get the mess of things, it's pretty quick, you know, they don't mess around with it. So, you know, and so, yeah, he's very fearful of this. And so they turn him over to Pilate and have him executed. In verse 29, it says, when they had carried out all that was written about him, they took him down from the cross and laid him in the tomb. Okay. What all was written about Jesus that was performed after they handed him over? We talk about the fulfillment of prophecy of Jesus, and I don't even know, the number is huge. I mean, if you go through every prophetic book and everything that's written, the number, I don't even remember how many it is. What is it, Steve? About 600 some prophecies he fulfilled. Old Testament. I mean, it's a huge number. I don't even remember. But just right here, after they take him into custody, there are fulfillments of Old Testament prophecies. And what are some of them? What are some of them?
Isaiah was telling them about 600 years ahead of time he was going to go to a cross.
He's going to go to
He
the cross.
wasn't going to be stoned like the Jews would do,
Right.
but he's going to a cross.
Isaiah says a tree, but yeah, Isaiah 52. Isaiah 53. Yeah, Isaiah 53. Most of Isaiah 53 talks about Jesus, and a lot of what's on the cross is found in Isaiah 53. Also, Psalm 22. Make sure I'm right. What am I saying? Yeah, Psalm 22. What do you say? Falsely accused. That's one. Falsely accused. Help me out.
Sheep before a slaughter. They're kind of paraphrased.
Right, yeah. Here you go, drink vinegar, yeah. Sponge, yeah.
Daniel talked about it too, but it's going to be cut off.
Can be cut off, yeah. Cut off. And some scholars say that I ain't gonna argue, but yeah, it is. I mean, we know it is, but yeah, he's cut off from his people. Yeah. What else? Just in this area right here, just in the crucifixion alone, I've got, you name a few I don't have, but we got mocked and hurled insults at Psalm 22, 7, 8. They mocked him, they hurled insults at him. It pierced his hands and feet, also found in Psalm 22, verses 16 and 17. Parted his raiment, his coats, they cast his lots for his garments. That's found in Psalm 22. Yeah, that's one. I'm not sure. I don't remember where that one's at, but that's one. I don't got that one written down. Crucified with sinners, Isaiah 53:12. Spat upon and beaten, Isaiah 50 and verse 6. Oppressed and afflicted, Isaiah 53:7. Rejected cornerstone, Psalm 118, 22-24. Pierced. Some say that, and I'll give you this exact right, 12:10. It says pierced, and some say, well, that don't say necessarily where he's pierced, but when you read up through it, it leads to make you believe it was pierced for death, because then it says that he would be in that moment more. And if you read on about Zechariah 12:10, and so they believe that's pierced in the side. Prophesied the pierced in the side. Some say, no, that's just the same prophecy. And it's pierced. Right, absolutely. Yeah. And
This version of the disciples.
That's one I didn't have down there. But I mean, you look at just an area of Jesus' life. We're not even talking about the virgin birth. We're not even talking about his life in general, but we're just talking about the last couple of days, the last day of his life right here on earth being fulfilled. And all these prophecies, I think 7 or 8 there, you've had a couple more, I didn't even have those. It's amazing to me how somebody could dismiss how that Jesus was the Messiah when he's fulfilling so many prophecies. And this is what he's bringing out. He's trying to draw them to the remembrance of the Scripture. And he's saying, see, look, I can show you how he died. There's witnesses to how he died. There's witnesses to what took place and how he fulfilled these going through. And like I said, they would have the knowledge of it because, well, they knew the Scripture. They knew it. They knew about the prophecies, and they were expecting it. They were longing for it. I mean, how many of us have heard the Scripture with the trumpets called, the dead in Christ shall rise? And you've heard that Scripture. We've been believing that Scripture for a long time. How many? It don't take you long to sit in church to hear that quoted, do you? You hear it quoted like because we're believing for it, right? The dead in Christ shall rise first, and those who remain shall be caught up. Where we get our word rapture from. We've been longing to see it. We're desiring to see it. And so we know that we know something like that by heart. Well, they had scripture after scripture telling them about what the Messiah was going to look like, how he was going to come, what was going to happen when he came, and how he would die a sinner's death. He would be crucified between two sinners. These are things that were testified and prophesied about, and he fulfilled it. And he's drawn right to that very thing.
He was also buried in a rich man's tomb.
He was buried in a rich man's tomb. Yeah, that's another one. And we're talking, like I said, just a day. And there's prophecy after prophecy. If nothing else, we get enjoyment out of her. She likes these. She really likes it. If you give her a candy or something.
She likes to bug him.
But here they are, and it says when they carried out all that was written about him. So, in other words, what they've done, they fulfilled what was written. They fulfilled it, and it says, he goes on and says, they took him down from the cross and laid him in the tomb. But God, and see, I love this anytime. I mean, you can just, when you see it, any kind of scripture, and no matter how you look at it, this word but, that means however, but God. And anytime I see it, I get excited because isn't that the way we got to look at our life? But God. In the midst of turmoil, in the midst, but God. But in the moment, but God. No matter how bad it gets, but God. However, God. I love how we drew this right here because this scripture here is just real quick. I mean, in the way they broke the verse down, but it's just such a incredible thing. But God raised him from the dead. The enemy took him out, but God raised him from the dead. But God. But God, it's just a statement of they had their plan, the enemy had his plan, but God. It's always recognized that way whenever the enemy is doing something and we read in scripture, then all of a sudden, but God. But God. If we can't shout about that, we can't get excited because but God. Amen. It's some things that keep us going every day, is it not? But I still serve a big God. But I still have a King of Kings and Lord of Lords fighting on my side. But God is with me. And if God be with me, who can be against me?
Amen.
But God. But God. That's something that every day, if we chew on that right there, that. Because all his, we've talked about this before, all of his planning, all of his scheming, everything the enemy's done, we saw it even over chapter after chapter trying to stop the church from growing. And all he did was, but God intervened and God moved it along and God progressed it. Why? Because if God's in it, there's nothing he can do. It may not look good in the moment because look what the disciples did. They spread, they ran away when Jesus died. They went into hiding, they were scared. They didn't return, though. He said, in 3 days, I'll rise again. He's told them that. 3 days, they're not the ones going looking, are they? Mary and them are going to prepare the body. After 3 days, they're going to prepare the body. They're going to do what you do, keep up the body. So it don't decay. So don't run faster. And the disciples, Peter, James, and John, the three closest buddies, his inner circle, they're sitting at home. But God, in that moment, I love it. And I'm talking to myself right now. If we just look at our situation, it is this way. This is my circumstance, but God. It won't be that way because somehow He orchestrates and turns this thing around. But God, when the situation's dead and Jesus intervenes, God's hands in it, but God, He raises what was dead alive. Our finances, our turmoil, our job situation, everything in that moment is dead. I don't know how I'm going to get through, but God. But God. But God. We can stay there all night. I get goosebumps just thinking about it because, but God, in that moment.
Yeah.
And He says, raised Him from the dead, and for many days He was seen by those who traveled with Him from Galilee to Jerusalem. They are now His witnesses to our people. Who's He talking about? Who's He talking about? The disciples. Yeah. All those that walked with Him. All those that communed with Him, all those that had visited with Him, traveled with Him, they didn't just travel with Him and watch Him be crucified, but then they talked with Him and witnesses that He was alive. That He was dead and raised to life. That all the ones, what He's saying is if you don't believe me, you can go ask them. If you don't believe me, just go ask them. If you don't believe that He was alive, just go ask them.
I think it gets me the most is how right is how full of gold. Or double or whatever,
Right.
Gold.
Right.
And everybody goes in and doing all this stuff. And they don't realize that's the big problem there.
Right.
That going on, everybody's saying, wow, I'm giving it hope and everything.
Right.
Wipe that off the next day.
Well, and I'll tell you, I preached on this before, but I really believe this because their mindset on the promise was different than the promise God had. Because they're looking for the king to rise up, the son of David to rise up and wipe out Rome and reestablish the kingdom, the Davidic kingdom. And so they're looking for an earthly king. They're looking for one. And so when they're rising up, if He's the Messiah, what better thing to do than chant His name, be on His side? And then now He's over here, and He's just sitting and He's talking about death, and He's talking about His last supper, and this last time. And all of a sudden they're like, well, we got to either do something. We're either going to have to provoke something. So some of them, crucify. If He's really the Messiah, then we'll provoke all that war, and we'll let Him see. Their mindset, I think, over half of them was different. They weren't expecting. They wiped out these prophecies. They got these all because they had their mind on one thing. The king will rise. The Davidic kingdom will be restored. And that's what their mindset was. This is why we talk about the rapture and things like this. We've talked about this you and I before and with others. Some people are going to say, well, Jesus, you didn't come back the way I thought you were. I read earlier, and I don't remember which religion it is, but there's a sect of religion out there that believes Jesus will come back and walk on earth as a man. And he'll start a church essentially. And I don't even know where they get this stuff. I didn't even read it perhaps much that far, so I couldn't tell you what all. And I don't even remember. It ain't a very big sect, but then we wonder why you get the David Koresh's of the world, or these other ones in the world. They got these followers, and they say we're Jesus Christ incarnated. Well, we read the book of Acts, and it's pretty clear. He said the way the angel said, the way you saw him go, that's the way he'll return. That's what he says. The way he went, that's the way he'll return. And then we got other scripture that tells us in the clouds, you know, I mean, it all points to one thing. He didn't come back earthly. When he does come back, for that, that's going to be after the rapture and everything else. He comes back and wipe them out, you know, the army of Satan. You know, right? I mean, it's amazing. But it's the same thought process that some of them had. Then they had their eyes fixed on what they wanted it to be and not what the scriptures said. So the scriptures, like you're talking about, oh, they're ushering him in. This may be what we're all waiting for. And now all of a sudden, we're a couple days in, he ain't starting all out war. He ain't overcome Pilate yet. He ain't started nobody. Where's his troops? He's like a fisherman. He can't fight. Where's his army? You know what I'm saying? So, well, let's probe it. Let's do the way I see it. I mean, that's just my take on it.
We got the attention drawn to him, and then they put out, he's not what we want.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But I know people wanted to go back, what's his name? Barabbas out because that's the kind he was. He was a zealot for doing it in the road.
Right.
And so they wanted him out more than they did the Lord out.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. And again, well, that's another one. You brought me up the kinsman redeemer in that moment. He pays the price for us. But anyway, no, I mean, they wanted him out because he was a murderer, and they said, well, he's killing the Romans, so yeah, let's get him out. And so it's amazing that you guys are witnesses, and they're saying, go ask him, don't take my word for it, go ask him. I had a Thursday night study group, a gentleman that was there last week. He said, you know, he goes, I don't believe in God. He said, I want you to know that. He said, I don't. He said, I've been turned off because I passed over and all that story. Kind of really broke him wrong. And anyway, he said, I'm really trying. He said, but I just need something real. I need something substantial. But you know, for me, it took the same thing, did it not? It took a personal experience with Jesus to say, Jesus really does love me. Jesus is real. Jesus really paid a price. It took a personal, it's no different. It's all what we've had to have. And so I understood what he was saying in that moment. I wanted to know, like I said in the past, I had a preacher sit there before me and tell me, you need to hear God's voice. He's talking to you. And I looked at my wife and I said, I never once heard God speak to me. Growing up in a Catholic church, you know, you went, it was ritualistic, it was religious, and at the same time, I've never once heard God speak. And so I asked her, how does God speak? You know, and not really putting it as a personal God. And it was that moment that I met him right there in that church, and I hear his voice as clear as day saying, I've always been speaking to you. Do you hear me now? And it's in that moment of surrender, the moment of giving up, and I heard him clear, and it was not verbal. I know some people have heard an audible voice. I've never heard the audible voice of God, but it was such a still, small voice in my heart. I knew that I knew that I knew. I just didn't have an encounter with the Almighty God. And I knew that he'd been trying to talk to me and speak to me, and I just kept shoving it away and thinking it was just me, and it was just emotional and yada, yada, yada. But in that moment right there, this has been a couple of years. What brings me back to that? Well, it was God. He said, always been talking to you. You just want to listen. And it's like, wow, you are real. And so I understood that. And so people have to have that. And that is the thing. That's why Jesus said, blessed are those that have seen. You say, how does it go? I'm not seeing it. Yeah. But when doubting Thomas, he said, like you, and in that moment, he said, blessed are those that have not seen. And so, they had the luxury of having eyewitnesses, and they said, I walked with Jesus, I talked with Jesus, I was there the day he was crucified, and I was scared to death. I ran and hid, but yet, then I got the word, and I actually went back and talked to him about I watched him die, and I was even in doubt, unbelief, and I had to touch him, and I had to see him, and I had to get him to talk. And so they had that. That's just amazing. And the witnesses were still alive. That's what makes it so much more prevalent when we see stories like this. If they didn't have the witnesses, then there was somebody to dispute it. No, I saw Jesus die, and no, I never saw him or heard of the very ones who walked with him. I saw Jesus die. I know he was dead and gone. There were witnesses that saw it. There was witnesses that said he died. I mean, I had when I was looking through some of the studies earlier, there's another sect of religions that they believe that actually somebody come and took Jesus' place, that they got a look like. And he died on the cross. And then Jesus, that's why these guys saw him later. Oh, come on now. There are. I mean, there's all kinds out there. They believe Jesus was a good man. He walked a good life, and he was more or less a prophet or whatever. But he's just a man. So if he's dead, he can't come back. This is where but God comes in. No, if he wasn't God, but God can. No, man can't, but God can. But yeah, he just had a look like. Well, don't you think his mother would have recognized him? Witness. Don't you think his best buddy would have recognized him? The ones that had just spent the last 3 years traveling with him every day, and almost every week, they would recognize him. No lookalike come along. The witnesses that said they're not going to be willing to die for somebody that's going to go take a back seat and let somebody else die before, and then come out like there's something big. They're not going to do that. No, I mean, none of us would we? I mean, let's be real. No. Especially when he's talking like, I'm the Messiah, follow me, put your life in my hand, trust me, I'm going to die for you. Oh, but Steve, wait a second, you look like me. You go die for me, please. They're not. No, I know. I don't think so. Steve, you look at me. You're nuts. You said you'd die for me to follow you. I've been following you. Now you ask me to die for you? I don't think so. You're mad. What? You're nuts. And so witnesses, it becomes so prevalent. And verse 32, I need to hurry. Verse 32. We tell you the good news. Good news. King James says glad tidings. It means the word is euangele, I know so, to announce good news, to declare or to preach. It's just to preach, to declare or announce good news. And it says what God promised our ancestors. We talked about this last week. We discussed about the promise he made in that moment. He had been promising something, and they've been waiting for it. And the moment it's there, they don't recognize the promise. The moment the promise has come to pass and it's at hand, they don't recognize it because their eyes were fixed on something completely different. They got their eyes fixed on what? The world rather than God. Right? They got their eyes fixed on what they desired rather than what God desired. They got their eyes fixed on God said, I'm going to send the Messiah. And we showed the scripture tonight that he's going to die for you, that he's going to die a sinner's death. These are the things that are going to happen. And so when he comes, be prepared for that. But their eyes were fixed on, like I said, something that the world said is Jesus. Oh, Lord, I watched something, I know I'm getting lost for a bit. Years ago, this was years ago, I watched a deal on the Discovery Channel or something, and this woman said, Jesus failed in his mission. I'm like, what? She said, yeah, he failed in his mission. The prophecy says that he was going to come in and be the king. Well, my Bible says he is the king. His king, he's already said it, his kingdom is one not of this world. He said, I mean, he declared that in the gospel when Jesus said. So Jesus, though she was saying he was the Messiah, but he failed in his mission. No, Jesus' mission was to come and die so his kingdom could reign here. He didn't fail in nothing. You're failing to see the promise. You're failing to see what he said and proclaimed. I come, Jesus said it throughout the Gospels. He testified. I'm not coming to be lifted up. I'm coming to lift up God. I'm coming to praise his name. I'm coming to do the will of the Father. I'm coming to die for you. I'm coming to lay down my life so you can be washed, cleansed of sin. I've come for you. But their ideas, this is the thing. This is the problem with the church today. Because when God gives a promise, I'll supply all your needs according to my riches and glory, the people over here, they think, well, the promise is I'm going to be rich the rest of my life. The promise is this: I'll have no worries, no cares. There will be nothing that can happen to me, nothing that can touch me. But miss the whole side of it, where the enemy says, I'm not going to let you. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to fight against you. I'm going to attack you. I'm going to beat you. And Jesus says you're going to be persecuted in the world. You're going to be delivered up in the synagogue. This is what Jesus says. I mean, that's the warning of Jesus. You're going to be delivered up. And he praises what? He does more praising the poor than he does the rich. Now, am I preaching against prosperity? Not at all. Don't get that tonight. Please don't take that away and say, I believe in the prosperity message wholeheartedly. I believe that as we sow, God multiplies it, and if we are faithful to do what we're supposed to do. But that does not mean the enemy is going to come and attack it. That don't mean if we don't sow, we're just automatically getting, number one. Number two, it means if we walk out here and we just start throwing out money and burning it on whatever, then he's going to prosper that. No. We're still supposed to be good stewards of what we have. Right? And so, but again, the eyes are fixed on this. I mean, for some people, what is prosperity when we start talking about it? When we start preaching the prosperity message, what goes through some people's minds? Most people, when you start talking prosperity, they think money. Absolutely. When he says, I apply all your needs according to my riches, when you hear that word riches, what's the, I mean, every human being, I hear it, riches, right? Money. Right? Riches, when I hear riches, that's my human nature, the human side of it. But how many of us are rich and we don't have a lot of money? But our needs are met, our bills are paid. But I'm rich, you know what? You know how fortunate I am. I've had 3 healthy kids, not a thing wrong with it. In this world today, that's unheard of. I still have every breath. I can still walk. I can still have the ability to talk. You know, here's something that I brag on, and I'll brag on you in front of all of you. I don't get sick. You know why? Because I got something to do. If I got sick, there ain't nothing else to do. This is what I got to do. I got to show up. If I don't show up, no one else will, right? I mean, that's it. And so God says, your need and the kingdom's need, and so you got to. It's part of it. Your need. The thing is, this is the prosperity message. If I sow and do what I'm supposed to do, then I'll prosper in all the things that I put and sow into, and they'll be prosperous in God's hands. That don't mean the enemy will attack them and try to take them out and steal them. And heck, if I got enough money in my pocket, that don't mean he ain't going to try to talk me into buying nothing nice, whatever. Right? Yeah, Joe.
He came to give the million back to man that was lost in the garden.
Absolutely.
We still have the keys of the kingdom, but do we know how to use it?
That's it.
Open that door.
Unlocking that. And this is it. It's keeping the eyes on what does Jesus have for me? What does Jesus have for me? Because, let's be real, if some of us have $1 million, if he walked in here and he just handed us $1 million, 9 out of 10 of us would be broke tomorrow. Right? I'm not speaking for you. You're the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There you go. You're the 10. Sorry, guys. She on your own side. You're from the me. No, how many lottery winners? How many lottery winners are broke within a year? There's a whole lot. Because it wouldn't benefit certain people. It wouldn't be prosperous to them. But they look at the riches, and their picture of this is what God says. This is what God says, but their picture, they're missing what He is, and the promise being fulfilled. Prosperity for me is not millions of dollars necessarily. I hope it is, Lord. Come on. I'll take it. I mean, we'd all take it, right? But at the same time, it may not be prosperous for my life. I've shared this before. How can I testify to somebody and share? This is what Paul said. He said, I know how to be all things. I know what to be slave. I know what to be free. I know what to be greedy. And, so I know what to have and have not. He says, so I can be all things to all people. He knows what it's like. He's went through it. He's endured it. He's went through times without. He's went through times where he's had plenty. And so if somebody's walking around and he just got it all together, and then you're in a place that everybody's broke, and you're up there and saying, well, you need to tithe and be faithful to tithing, and they're like, you got all the money in the world. I know this. I know a pastor that had farms and land and all kinds of stuff, and he got up and he preached stuff like that, and an individual walked out and said, I wouldn't give that church a dime. That guy's got more than I got. Missing the point, But, they're missing the point, but I'm not judging him at all. I mean, if he's preaching what he's supposed to be preaching, I mean, I steer very lightly on tithing because I believe that's between us and God individually. If you're not faithful to it, then that's between you and God. If you're faithful to it, I promise you this: you're going to multiply, you're going to bless it, it's going to flourish. This is the only scripture that God says, try me, test me. It's the only one. The only commandment of God is His testimony. Try it. But what I'm getting at is being things to people. There's things that, yeah, I would love, but He knows what's prosperous for me. So when He says it's prosperous for me, then I know that the promise is fulfilled when my needs are being met, though it's time along the way. If I'm walking with Him and yeah, I'd love to have a lot more at the end of the month and being like, okay, I can sit on Easy Street. But He said, no, you're prosperous because
we're not supposed to think that we're giving it to man, we're giving it to God.
yeah.
And they'll be good stewards of it, that's their problem.
You put that back on them.
Don't put it on me, put it on them.
You're right. If we sow, I don't care. You bring your tithe to the storehouse. I don't know how we got here, but you bring your tithe to the storehouse, and you're being a diligent steward. You're doing what you're supposed to do. The rest is on them. If the church here blowing money for no reason, that's on us as leadership. That's our fault. That's not on you. That's on your fault.
I had a time. Next lady come in and said, I want to sell you this new car. And I said, she told me the name. She said, yeah, I just want $58,000. And I said, why did you sell the car? He said, I will. This was 4 days.
Yeah.
4 days.
There's a guy. That you can watch these shows all the time. They're on. It's been years since I watched one, but lottery winners gone bad or something like that. And there was this guy that the first thing he done, he won millions of dollars. First thing he done was start a demolition derby in his backyard. And I'm not talking, they didn't go out and buy demolition cars. They didn't have to buy nice cars. $50,000 grand, car. And they run in their backyard and crash a $50,000 car, The guy was broke with it, and they're auctioning off his, not prosperous, is it? It's not prosperous for me, it's some people. It wouldn't be beneficial. And God would, it's getting the picture of what God has for our lives. It's getting the picture of what He has for, this is why vision, this is why He said, without vision, the people will perish. Because if we don't got a word and a promise from God, then we have nothing to strive for, nothing to hope for, nothing to sow into. To see that promise come to pass. But when the promise comes to pass, it needs to be what is prosperous for our lives. And our eyes got to be fixed on that. That's why they missed it. That's why they missed it. They had their eyes fixed on something over here in the flesh. They're not saying what's more important. What's the most important thing? What is the most important thing in life in the whole world around us? What is it? Your salvation, your relationship, your right standing with God, your righteousness. It's the most important thing. I mean, if we have our kids, we train them up to do that. We want them to believe in the Lord, so they know the Lord. So no matter what happens in life, at the end of the day, we want our kids to flourish, do we not? But at the end of the day, if they don't flourish here, we want them still to end up there. Right? I mean, every one of us, if we don't, there's something messed up. We want them to end up in eternity with God. We raise up our kids that way. We want it for our lives. It's the most important thing that we have in this life. It's the thing that we strive for. That's why we talk about seeing the furtherance of the kingdom. Why? Ultimately, yeah, we would like to see everything. We'd like to see God's kingdom flourish on earth. But at the same time, more importantly, we want to see souls won every single day. Because we'll never see the kingdom come if the souls ain't won. It's just been walking up. The more we got, the more the kingdom grows, right? The more it flourishes here. But at the same time, it's what He came for. And they had such a finite moment. We want set free right here, right now. We want this right here, right now. If God said this, if He come to you and said, if you walk this process and go through hell to get here, at the end, here's what's waiting. How many of you are willing to do it? Every one of us, right? That's what he was saying. Yeah, you've got to serve under Roman rule, and you've got to let them rule over you and reign over you. But the more important thing is, I don't care if 2,000 more years. Nonetheless, that's eternity. 2,000 years is nothing but blink of an eye. I promise you that. It's nothing but a life. That's what our life is. It's what He said. They have the treasures up there. The promise was so much bigger, and in that moment, when it would be fulfilled, because they couldn't see past their own desires, their own wants, and what they saw it as, they missed it. They missed it. I don't want to miss when God's promise comes to pass. And so, we all long for the promise He gives. How many got a vision of get from God? Amen? God showed you something. Whether it's salvation for your kids, salvation for your grandkids, salvation for your husband, wife, better marriage, better finances, whatever it is, He says this. It's going to come to pass at the perfect time where everything's shaped. I mean, they went 4,000 years, did they not, before Jesus came? It's a long time. Well, that's been alive 4,000 years. Well, that's slow. See if you with me. No, but it was a lot, but it made it seem like a for God. It was in an instant, and all of it come at a perfect time, at the perfect moment, to fulfill the perfect need of the Lord. So that what? They could see the need for it, they could desire the need for what He had. If we never go through this, then we won't. It's like that lottery winner. It becomes it's just easy to throw it away because they never, ever had to fight to get it. They never had to stand on something and say, I mean, they're walking in, well, here's a dollar. Not really expecting to win. I mean, how many really expect to win? I used to play the lottery. I didn't really expect, I played a long time ago, because I didn't expect to win. It's like, well, here's a dollar, give it to the school. And it's really ain't going to school, but that's what they tell you, right? But the promise he had, it helps shape us and grow us so that when we receive that promise, it's something that we want to hang on to. It's something that's been hard fought and stood on and bled and sweated and cried for. This is why some young people don't grasp it whenever you start talking about Jesus. And these young kids, they grow up in the church and they, oh, I love the Lord, I love the Lord. And the world hits them in the face and they don't recognize really all that stuff they sang about here at the children's church, all that. At some point, it finally can flood back to them. Oh, now it makes sense. It makes sense. Because they've endured the world. They went through the world. We don't experience sin. We don't really recognize the grace he poured out here. When we think we're just good, I mean, let me tell you, I was as righteous could be. I didn't do nothing wrong. Everybody else's fault. When we got in a fight, my wife, I mean, she did terrible. And then it was even worse out. My mother-in-law's fault. It was my brother's fault, my dad's fault, my mom, my sister's fault. They were always my sister's fault. Still might be her fault a little bit. I was the most righteous guy you could meet. But it was that moment that I recognized my sin. When I see that I'm a sinner and I'm broken and it's me. They're not, everybody else has the issue, it's me. This town has the issue, it's me. Then I need a Savior. And then all of a sudden that Savior says, I'll accept you for what you are. That's what I died for. But if I don't recognize my wrong, I don't recognize I need him, I can have sweet lips for Jesus all day long. But I have a real heart for him. But it's enduring one. Let's walk through that. I think I better end there because I still get scripture. I want to get for you. Anybody else want to add anything? I don't know. We got off somehow.
Really a lot well between these two covers. Besides salvation,
Yeah, absolutely.
so much.
And you know, that's something you bring up such a great point because look at we talk about the prosperity message. How fortunate are we in this country alone? That we just take it for granted. Freedom. I mean, first and foremost, the freedom to gather like this. We can talk about forsaking the gathering of the brethren all we want, but in this country, we have every morning, if we wanted to, we could get up and gather with friends and talk about Jesus anyway. And then every Sunday morning, every Wednesday night, the doors are open in this building, and Thursday nights in the building across the road. And I'm just throwing out these buildings, but there's all over. There's probably a church open all over the place every day of the week. But what I'm saying is, we got that freedom. How prosperous is that? I mean, that's something we take for granted. Yeah. Take for granted. The promise.
The thing about China that there was about they had was two churches in this one. They said small town was like 300 million, 2 million people. They have two legal churches in the city, and they're back for a couple services each Sunday, and otherwise they have to go to the home churches, the ones where you get interrupted by the guards who are covered particularly.
China, Christianity became one, well, the fastest growing in that area than any other area in the world. Christianity grew faster there. And because finally they recognize why, because it's taken away. It's taken away. I hate to say it, but in this country, to wake up revival in this church in America today, I'm afraid we've got so lax that some of us, until it's taken away, we're going to say, oh, we didn't realize what we had. Because Jesus was taken away, some of them didn't realize what they had. This is, you know how encouraging it is. I stand here during worship and singing them old hymns, and it's, you know, just the piano, it's just so pure, just pure. You know, it just brings you back to that place of just, it ain't the loud music, it just, all of a sudden you listen to some of the words, and we long for that day. My son always wants to sing, I'll fly away, we long for that day. The mansion on the hilltop is on Sunday, over the nursing home. You know, these are things we long for. And it's Lord, it's just singing to God. And, it just brings a peace to the atmosphere. It brings a peace to my soul. You know, with everything else, all the noise going around, you know, because it's constant. I mean, it never stops, does it? You guys got young kids, you got 4 kids, it never stops. It's, if it ain't one thing, it's another. And all the time. It's like, world, would you just stop for a moment? But this is the place. This is the law. Because God's presence will come on, and peace just comes, and you can forget about the world. Just me and God. But if we didn't have that, it would strip us. We'd be millions. That's why it becomes so good in this time to fight for it and stand up now before it is taken away. We keep getting lax and it's going. Amen. Amen. All right. Any further questions? Well, praise God. Oh, yes. Praise God. Praise God. But God, you know, I'm not changing the subject, and I know we should close, but there was a young lady, her husband, I don't know how old she is, her husband, he was softball here, he was just a kid, when I say he's a kid, he's in his 30s now, but he was a kid back then, and she's coming out of high school. They married this young lady, they had what, 1 kid, 2 kids left to Smith. You gotta watch the man. But, anyway, he had a few kids, and they were young. And she got diagnosed with some cancer. I gave her months to live. Months. It's been 5 years ago. 5 years ago. Doctor gave her months. But God. The first thing they did, they didn't, you know, you get these people that put it out on Facebook, please pray, please pray. But they prayed. They went to the churches that they trusted and asked, pray, please pray. Intervene for us. Stand in the hedge. And they did. But God. See, they know you do. But God.
One month later, Terry, we're going to the doctor's Friday for his seizure episode he's been having, and we're going to try to figure out something.
We're going to believe it's not. And we believe whatever is gone in the past is done with. I don't want you to rule through, that's okay. I mean, you guys, you guys get everything. What else? What else? We got crazy on.
Remember Mary Smith's family? Her nephew, Jason, has cancer. His mother, Sue, that was here with Mary the one Sunday, they found a lump on the back of her neck. And they want to remove it, they don't know what it is for sure. And then his dad had a stroke and his blood clots in his leg. So that family's been hit hard.
Come on, Jeff.
How did you stop that? So
Okay, yeah.
we keep a name dropping.
I'm gonna show them what. Anybody else? Mary Smith, the family. Let's thank God. The Christmas family. Joe, come on, help me out. Joe forgets what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
Actually, you just can't hear me. It's like, wait a minute. Oh, this is big. Oh, big God. All right. Is there any other purpose?